Welcome to the Business Leader Spotlight. The Business Leader Spotlight is bringing attention to those in our community making a difference in business. It is also an opportunity to identify the skills they have learned and applied to get where they are. And now, let us go into this week's interview.
Thank you for joining us on this week's edition of the Business Leader Spotlight. This week we have with us Rodney Sadler. Rodney's an avid podcaster and he's a real estate developer. So, Rodney, welcome to the show this week.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rodney, how things been going for you, and tell us what you've been into recently.
So everything's going pretty good. Like you mentioned that I'm into real estate. I'm newly into real estate. I just started the process, and I started the process a little before COVID, the shutdown, and so that slowed it a little bit. But right now, I'm currently in the shopping stage.
Okay.
So I'm looking for properties. I actually looked at something yesterday, and the numbers didn't work out. It was just too much of a rehab. So, but that's where I'm at right now. 47 years old. I'm out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Just a regular 9-to-5 guy who likes to podcast because I love talking to people.
Okay, cool. So with your real estate endeavors and with your podcasting, I guess, how'd you get started on the not on the real estate, but the podcasting side? What made you go into that?
That was well, so I always liked listening to interviews, and like probably my favorite all-time interviewer was Howard Stern. So I would always listen to interviews where, people, just were their self. Like sometimes you watch something and people are talking and it, you could tell it's super scripted, the timing, the jokes, and everything seems to be scripted out. So I always enjoyed watching Howard Stern interviews and listening to him. That wasn't necessarily a podcast, but that style. Right. And but I consider those, like podcasts. And then from there, I listened to a lot of, believe it or not, AM radio, which,
most people don't know.
Yeah. For most people, it's pretty boring. But it wasn't, I wasn't listening to AM radio because I wanted to initially. It was at my job. My boss always had it on while we were working. And, I just got used to that style of talking and that style of, no music, just people talking. Whereas before, the radio was simply for me, music. I had to turn the radio on for music. And I got into listening to like the sports talk shows and interviews. So I really enjoyed that. And so I've always enjoyed that style of conversation. And then from there, I stopped, so that brings you to more recent times where I started listening to podcasts. It was just a transition to start listening to, podcasts. And a coworker and I used to have these really good conversations. And then one day I was like, hey, you ever thought of doing a podcast? And she was like, I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to say anything to you. I thought it'd be weird. So we just, we connected like that. And so then we went back and forth with ideas, trying to figure out what exactly we wanted to do. And then, I had to go research it. I went on YouTube. I'm watching tutorials. I'm reading articles because I didn't know anything about it. Right. I knew there was a recording. I saw sometimes you would see people talking to each other, but I didn't know anything about a microphone, headphones, recording, download. I didn't know anything about that. So I had to go jump into that. And the more I jumped into it, the more I said, this is something I want to do. And from there, I created that initial podcast. That was a co-hosting podcast. But, we recorded, I want to say about 16 episodes. And then with time and family obligations, kind of went our separate ways. And then more recently, in this past year, I started my own. So I took a little hiatus, but, I just got back in there because I love doing it. I was listening to them all the time, and it took a little while, but I got my ground back and started recording again.
Nice. Okay, so it seems like with your podcast and learning from Howard Stern, I'm going to assume you're not necessarily the, I'll say, shock jock type of interviewer per se. You're not going to, bust out the strange questions, but what's more your style of interview?
I like, I don't know. I guess it would be like a chat, a chat. For the most part, like, I'm not looking for gotcha. I'm not looking so I wouldn't do it for, like ratings or clicks. I'm not interested in doing clickbait. I like things that I find interesting, or if I see that, somebody in the local community has something, a product, whether it's they're baking cookies or if they're providing a service, I usually reach out and, COVID's put a hold on it because I used to do my interviews live.
Right.
And then, I got the setup here and it would be right across, but COVID. So you imagine 3 months ago, or really about 4 months ago, I had things lined up, but, once COVID came and you can't be in person and,
right.
Stuff like that, it just kind of put a hold on it. But it's just like, I just like conversations, good conversations, conversation that's going to give somebody something. And there's enough, like, to me, like junk out there where people are just talking junk about people and stuff like that's enough of that. I don't want to contribute to that anyway, but I feel like that's not my thing. That's not who I am at this point. Maybe when I was in my 20s, I might have wanted to, not that I can't talk about the topic of the day. We can do that as well, but in a way that's respectful and in a way that these are recordings. This is out there. And if it look like, I feel like if your kids can't listen to it, without, then I don't want to do it. I don't want to contribute to it.
I see. So previously you would have the interviews, basically right there in your little studio and right across the table from you. I guess during a session like that, what's the strangest thing that may have happened during an interview?
All right. So during an interview, not too much. I'm going to touch on something specific, but after the interviews I've had, recording just be useless, whether it's, a lot of noise or at one particular, listening to a recording, after recording it got to a point where it sounded like it was going backwards. Like they used to spin the records backwards years ago.
Yeah.
The recording just started going backwards. So that was weird after the fact. But the strangest thing was I had somebody on and she wasn't a guest, like we weren't interviewing her, but she was contributing because she wanted the idea of what goes on. So I said, come and sit in on the recording. But I asked her if she wanted to contribute. She said, yeah, sure. And she said she was writing a book. She was in the beginning stages of, writing a book. She had, she had like 2 notebooks full of, what she wanted to write. Mm-hmm. So she had a name, a title and everything. And then when we got to the end of the episode, which we didn't focus on her, she just contributed. When we got to the end of the episode, I asked her, hey, so, I did that little scripted thing. I was like, hey, I know you're working on the book. You had mentioned that. And she, like, I asked her about a book and she said started talking about cars, like, well, Nissan, and she started naming cars and my co-host and I were like looking at each other and asked her again. I was like, no, the book. And I'm pointing to her. She has her pages. I'm pointing to her pages and she just, and so I cut away whatever. And I made up something or whatever. And but what happened was she has seizures. She didn't have a full-on seizure, but that was a seizure for her when she loses her train of thought and the words don't come out the way they're supposed to come out.
Oh my goodness.
But she actually had a seizure during the recording. I edited that out of the recording when I published it. But yeah, she had a seizure during the recording.
Oh man. Did everything work out? Was she okay?
Yeah, no, she was okay. I knew her, and I knew that she had seizures, and but I didn't know, like, when you think of seizure, you think of, somebody shaking and stuff
Right.
like that, and but some seizures because they're like a brain fog and you can't think. And she knows. When I talked to her, she said that she knew what she wanted to say, but whatever wasn't coming out. And
Oh,
she
wow.
looked confused too as she was, saying this stuff. So yeah.
That's
And I was gonna
that's
say the good thing about the good thing about when you do podcasts, unless you're doing it live, you know, I release it after I listen to it and I edit it.
right.
So the good thing is, if that's not necessarily a bad thing that it happened to her. It wouldn't be embarrassing because she has a medical issue. It's actually probably something to talk about. We probably could have done an episode on, seizures and what kinds and medication and all that
Yeah.
after that. But, for the integrity of the person, it's easier to, okay, after we talk. So say I'm interviewing you and you're a little bit more revealing than you wanted to be. You can say, hey, could you take that part out? And I'll gladly take it out. So, for her integrity, I just took it out. I didn't even ask her. I just took it out because it sounded really confusing. And
Right.
if you're listening to it and you heard that, you would, you wouldn't be sure what it was.
Okay. Now, I would definitely say that would be something that would catch me off guard during an interview. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly how I would, even know how to respond in that type of situation. So, but I think you did a great job, and it seems like just your understanding and being able to work through it with the person, and then just even come to find out, the background of what happened and what caused it, kind of give you some insight and some learning. But like you said, it is a good thing to understand because like you said, I thought seizures were only one way. There wasn't there are
No,
different types.
I think it's like one is called, I think the one, like the highest one is called like grand mal seizure or something like that. That's when somebody is convulsing and
Mm-hmm.
you have to, move things out the way and just make sure they don't hurt themselves. And, because you can't do anything. That old school, put something in their mouth and don't let them swallow their tongue. No, you don't want to do that. You want to, they have to go through that. And then you have to talk to them when they're coming out of it. You have to ease into the conversation because they don't know what happened.
Okay.
They literally don't know what happened during that time. They just wake up and it's like, medical workers standing around them and they're wondering what happened. So that's the worst of it. And you can lose your life during those seizures. So that's what most people think about seizures, convulsing and, foaming at the mouth and stuff like that, losing your bodily function. Those are the things but it gets, they're even lower level than that. So I did learn something. So, and that's, like I said, that's the thing about talking to somebody. I like to have a couple of questions here and there, but I'm going to let it go where it goes. Where the conversation goes, it goes.
Yeah, that sometimes that makes for a more interesting and more revealing interview, and
For
being
sure.
able to do that. So, I guess to transition off of that, so I understand that you've done different types of training, Krav Maga, CrossFit. So, what are some of the things that you learned from that training that you've been able to apply to some of the different endeavors you're doing right now, the real estate or podcasting?
Well, in life too.
Okay.
So I want to say like CrossFit is probably the hardest physically and the most rewarding thing that I've done. And anybody that's trained in groups, that the power of that teamwork. If you're a part of a team and people are pushing you, and even after they're done, they're encouraging you, and that it just made me, it gave me the idea, and it reinforced that idea that even though when you think you're done, you're not actually done. You're like, I have nothing left, and I got to run another quarter mile and then come and do another 30 burpees and 10 lifts. I got to do that, whatever the case is, and go do 10 pull-ups, and you can't go through one station until you finish with the next. And then you're seeing people moving past you, and not to be sexist or anything, but seeing as a man, you're seeing women blowing through the course, and it's just like those things that challenge everything about you. But it was as tough as a thing that I've been through, but rewarding when you're done with that. And it's very rewarding. Krav Maga, another thing that was really tough. I trained Krav Maga for a year. It's really static contact where you are hitting fast as you possibly can. And that was the way Krav Maga we trained was my instructor was his theory was the fight didn't start until you were tired. Mm-hmm. So he blew us out during the warm up, and then we started training. So stuff like that where your mind is not thinking about those type of things when you're thinking about training. If you just go to a gym or your normal training, you just go hit the weights. People see you, hey, how you doing, Mike? Oh, you stop talking and you chatting and you sipping your water, and where this was like, nah, you get in there and the warm up is killing you, or you felt like it was killing you, and then it's like, all right, let's train now, and then almost like that. If you're a Batman fan, in Batman Begins, when they had Ra's al Ghul had him climb up to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
And then, then kicked his butt a little bit. But it was like that. And I've trained in a couple of other things as far as like martial arts geared stuff because of what I do for a living. And I like the idea that, you push beyond what you think you can do. So even with technical difficulties with podcasting, and I don't always apply Krav Maga to the podcasting, but the idea of,
right.
I'm not going to figure this out. I can't. I got the mics on. I got this on. I got this feedback. Where is it coming from? You lifting wires. You checking this. You checking that. And it's just a matter of, okay, there's something here. There is something wrong. I got to figure it out. So let me unplug every last thing, put everything in one by one. And now with YouTube, I put up a tutorial, and they pretty much have everything. You can type any weird thing you want, and somebody's doing it, right? And it's like, okay, or somebody had that problem. If you pose the question online, you'll see. So just gave me the idea that, you got to get there. And then after all of that, after all the frustration, then there's that reward. So those physical trainings that I did helped me as far as, and the same thing with real estate. We looked at I want to say we looked at like 10 properties, and for what we're trying to do, the numbers don't work.
Right.
But the idea is not to get frustrated and say, let's just buy something, because let's just buy something, go against everything that the course that I took told me to do, and let's just get something because we want to say we're real estate investors. No, the idea is there's a particular formula. So stay the course, and you will find that right particular property that you want to. So just to keep pushing, like a lot of trainings and a lot of things you learn over the years. Just keep pushing. There's a way to find you. You'll find your way.
Okay, so I've got to hit on this with the CrossFit one. You talked about having those moments where you're going through the circuits and, people are passing you. What kind of things are running through your mind? Where does your mind go? Or where some of the places, where did your mind go during those moments?
You mean which side? When I wanted to quit, or when I wanted to keep going on?
When you wanted to quit.
Danny Glover used to say it a lot in the Lethal Weapon movies. As you can see, I watch a lot of movies. I'm too old for this. It's like, because I didn't do CrossFit until I'm maybe like 42, 43 years old. I didn't go into a box. They call them box. I didn't go into a box until I was 42 years old. And from there, it was, I was going from a traditional weight training scenario where I go in the gym, I may hit my chest, tries, calves, and abs, maybe get on the treadmill and go home. Now, just imagine doing that in a circuit and as fast as you can. That's what it was. So, and I played basketball, baseball, football. It's like things that I've done and I've played. I think the reason why the challenge was so challenging was partly because my age. As we get older, it's a little tougher to, do those things. But just, man, why did I don't need this. Like in my mind, I'm like, I don't know anybody in here, anything. I just leave. They'll be all right. Look, they're getting along just fine. They're running circles around me, because I did it on a college campus. So most of the people in the class were college age students, and, I'm twice their age.
Right.
And while I can look at it and say, well, I can make excuses and be like, well, they're younger than me and blah, blah, blah. So which I did. They're younger than me, and they can. So this is a young man's game. All that stuff that you tell yourself that to make sure that you give yourself an excuse not to do what you said you were going to do, which is you paid for this money. You said you're going to complete this class, and the workouts are literally, it could depend on the workout, but some of the days the workouts were like a 20-minute workout. And if you could imagine quitting, wanting to quit 5 minutes into a 20-minute workout, or the 45-minute workout, getting to minute 20 and being absolutely gassed. And then you look at the clock and it's like 25 more minutes of this. And I'm feeling dead already. So you can talk yourself out of it, all kinds of things. I got a life, my family's relying on me, this is some BS, and, all that stuff. But every time, I never quit on a workout. For whatever reason, I was able to say, all right, just go. Because that's the other thing, too. You can scale the workout. So the idea is, the instructor, he doesn't want you hurt. He wants you to, he wants you to feel pain. He wants you to go, but he doesn't want you hurt and getting out of his class, because he wants you to come back to the class. But just a matter of convincing myself after telling myself all those things I said, then it's like, all right, cool, just get up, man, get up and just jog. Don't sprint, because you don't have a sprint. Jog. Mm-hmm. After every deadlift, take a deep breath. The idea is to get through the workout. And if you finish last, so be it. Something about competition where I didn't want to finish last. So I think I'd rather sneak out the back door than be the last guy where everybody's, drinking their water, sitting down, and you still got 5 more rounds to go.
Right.
So just, and then I had to say, all right, you know what, just finish where you finish. And no judgment. That's the thing. There was no judgment. I was judging everything myself. There was no judgment from anybody else, though.
Interesting. So are those classes, the CrossFit, is it encouraging, or is it all individual type of an effort?
No, it's encouraging, because, again, you're literally working out right next to somebody. Every now and then there was a day where it was like only 3 people that came in there, and that's less encouraging. But there was one particular day where nobody could make it, and I was in such a groove. I asked him, I used to call him the general, his name is Channing. I asked him, hey, could I get the keys and go and do the workout? Because everybody, he would send a text, who's coming? And nobody, I can't make it. So-and-so couldn't make it. So-and-so couldn't make it. And I say, hey, man, I'll go in there. And I did the workout, and there's cameras in there. So I couldn't even go in there, fiddle-faddle around and leave. There's cameras in there. And I know he watches them, because he can't at one point, because it's on the campus that I work at. He came to the office, and I work in the public safety department. And he done a 300 workout, and he said, hey, could I get the footage of that? Because somebody bet me that I couldn't do it in 20 minutes. He wanted, so I know he was coming up requesting the footage. So I wouldn't dare go in there and waste his time. So, but it's encouraging, and like I said, you feel really accomplished, and it's fun too. So I think it was a really encouraging atmosphere. I think the CrossFit in general, even the stuff that I watched on TV or when I talk to people, they really love CrossFit. It's like, you know, people that do it, that continue to do it, really love it. And, you know, so I felt like it was encouraging for sure.
Okay. All right. So switching out of CrossFit and the training, how did you said you started on the real estate investment side. So what got you motivated to start looking into that and even making that kind of a leap, seeing as how you talked about you have, a day job right now, and then having to put in the work to learn about real estate and then learn the tools and get your finances straight for it. So it seems like it's costing you right now, it's costing you time, effort, and to be able to get involved in it. What motivated you to do that?
I think just like in general, as I've gotten older, just thinking about legacy a little bit more and what I'm leaving behind. So, and with a lot of death, when you see a lot of death and you experience it and you're around people and you see that, a lot of people are. I've seen people have to have GoFundMe's for their funerals, stuff like that. And I have a 403b. My company matches it, so that I have an IRA, a personal IRA, and I have life insurance. Those are things that I have. So I have a little bit of something in place, but it just I started to think more about financial freedom and ways to create passive income. And that led me to, I always thought about real estate. I didn't know how to get into it. But there's different passive incomes. But real estate seemed to me like one of those things that you can make money while you're sleeping, because it's doing its thing while you're sleeping. It's kind of like the stock market. But like I mentioned, I have a 403b, so I have, that's invested, and it's invested it's age appropriate for me. And then every now and then I'll have an agent and talk to them and see where I want to go when I get into my 50s, what I want to change and this and that. And the idea of, from a kid, it's go to school, whether you go to college or trade school, go to work for 30 years, retire in your mid 60s, and then enjoy life.
Right.
And so I was trying to, just thinking like what I could do so I can, and I'm not saying I don't enjoy my life now, but on a greater scale. And then you see like, companies can lay you off. And there's like a lot of things that got in my mind. Like I was thinking, man, I really want to be a little bit more, I want to have a little bit more freedom, and particularly financial freedom. So just looking it up, there's different things you could do, but real estate was the thing that I decided that, let me look into that a little bit more. And then I found a course that I found interesting, and I took that. And then I started to follow what the course was suggesting, putting a team together, whether it be a lawyer. And I have a house, so I did that before, and I was in real estate. That was the other thing too. I'm already in real estate, right?
Right.
When you think about it, I already have a home, and the home was almost paid off. They had like 13 more years to pay them, so I added 7 more years with the refinance and pull cash out, and I'm going to use that equity that I built up to invest and create a passive income system for me, and I can hand that to my kids or my family, leaving something behind, not just like I said, the life insurance or 403b. I want my kids and potential grandkids to hit the ground running. So my idea was to start, legacy-wise, start, building while I live a better life as well too. It's not just all for them, but partially for them.
Okay, so something that, if I could say, leaving a legacy for not necessarily something where it's like your name in lights or anything along those lines,
Right.
but something where, the succeeding generations can look back and say, my dad, my granddad, he was able
Right.
to help give me this start.
Right.
By making,
and they can
Go ahead.
They can contribute too. They can also have something because they're gonna get it. They get the game as well. They're gonna go along with me when I go to these properties, and they're gonna see how things are evaluated. You know, sit in with me on the signing, so they can see you're signing like 40 pages when you do these deals. So it's not just, oh, Dad went and got a house, because we get to see that part. If you told me, hey, I just went and bought a house and I didn't see the process, then I would just think, oh, Mike went to the bank, got a loan, got a house, they gave him some keys. No, you got to go do your due diligence. You got to look at the neighborhood. You got to go to the city council, sit in some of these meetings and listen about what they're doing developmental wise. Okay, this is going to be up and coming area, so I want to invest in there. And also too, I want to community build as well. I left that part out, but I definitely want to community build, and then give the game to not just my kids, but their friends or my friends. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing.
Okay, so as you continue to build the life that you're looking for, I guess what would be your hobby during this as you build this life and future for yourself? What would be your favorite activity, hobby to do?
Hobby? I say right now, everything podcasting is my hobby, because if I haven't recorded in a while, but I'm always researching and writing stuff down. I have, 5 or 6 notebooks with information and questions. I'm preparing to talk to certain people, and I have, I've got a bunch of stuff that I write out. Even if I don't end up doing an interview, if somebody says they're interested in doing an interview, I go and research them. I go look at their Facebook page or Instagram, and if it's a field that they're in, I go look up that. Like I'm supposed to be talking to a guy who runs a brewery. Yeah. So, we went back and forth texting whatever, and he was like, like, what kind of things would you like to talk about? So I sent him like a whole, I wanted to talk to him, go about the history of breweries in Connecticut and different kinds, IPAs and this and that, lagers. I wanted to kind of make something that somebody who drinks beer can listen to it and they can enjoy the conversation and possibly get some new information. So that's what I say. I say all that to say, like, when it comes to my time, podcasting is more, I would say, my hobby. And I'm not even, it'd be great to be able to monetize it and have it attached to my real estate investing as well, because that's a way to get information out as well. So, but at this point, because everything's shut down, I used to love playing basketball and stuff like that. I don't know if I'll ever, like, really, with COVID, like, be comfortable, with the whole idea of that kind of close quarters, contact and stuff like that. So I always, I'm always good for a good basketball game or something like that. But right now, I would say podcasting would be my hobby, and with the potential to make it, to monetize it.
Oh, okay. So podcasting. All right. So is there any destination, vacation that you would take? First place you would go if you?
I want to go to Hawaii. 'Cause I've been to Bahamas. I've been to, like, the typical stuff that we go when we get a little, start to travel. Those things you heard of when you're a kid: the Bahamas, Jamaica, Bermuda, Dominican Republic. Disney. Disney's my favorite. I think if I had one, Disney would be my favorite. I'm still a big kid, so I enjoy that whole atmosphere. But I'm thinking Hawaii. I was talking to somebody who actually lives in Hawaii, and they were like, hey, all you need to do is pay for the tickets and your plane ride. And he said, because the most expensive thing there is the hotel stay. So he was like, if you don't mind that I have a little small apartment, you can stay there. So once everything clears up, it may be Hawaii. Nice. Maybe Vegas. Never been to Vegas. Never been to Louisiana. Never been to New Orleans. Like, those are things that I want to do, but I think Hawaii would be, like, those are really easy, doable.
Right.
Hawaii is a little bit more expensive and a longer travel for me, coming from, all the way East Coast.
What is it? 5-6 hours to California, then another 5 to 6 hours to Hawaii. Not that bad.
No, I only been, the flights, the longest flight I've been on from one destination to another, it was like 3.5 hours, maybe 4. But the longest time I've been on an airplane, probably like 12 hours, and that was because going to Atlanta, there was a storm, so we couldn't land. We had to fly around the airport because there was a thunderstorm beneath the plane. So we flew. They said we're gonna fly in a circle. Then we ran out of fuel, so we had to go to Macon and land in Macon to the fuel spot. Land in Macon, and then the fuel truck ran out of fuel before it finished fueling, so that had to leave. Then it came back and fueled. Then the storm got to Macon, so we had to wait till the storm cleared Macon. Then we got in the air, went back to Atlanta, and then because we had been delayed so long, there was not a place for us to land. So we flew around in a circle in Atlanta for a couple of. Then we landed, and there was no place for us to unload or dock or whatever, and so we just circled. So it was like 12 hours on the plane. But I don't like flying, so that's the other thing too. I don't really like flying. Could I drive to Hawaii?
No, they haven't finished that highway from California to Hawaii yet. Okay, I've been on some long flights, but I don't think I've ever had one as eventful as that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was my first time on the plane. So I already had the anxiety and the fear. And then I'm just like, I just want to get off this plane. I'm a good sized dude. So,
right.
You sitting in them little chairs. And yeah, so everything has been much better since then. But that's not the worst plane ride, but that was terrible.
That's not the worst, but that was terrible.
No,
okay.
That was terrible, but that's not the worst.
Wow.
You got time, I can tell you a quick story about that.
Well, let's hear a little bit about the worst one then.
Okay, so it was a smallish plane where you could see the propellers on the outside. And it was coming from Philadelphia to Tweed, I think, in New Haven. I think that's in New Haven. So it wasn't a big plane at all. So all the turbulence, you feeling all the turbulence.
Yes.
And it almost like it was floating. And every wind that blew, it was just like lifting up and then dropping. The issue was that before we left Philly, I went to Chicky and Pete's and got a lobster Philly cheesesteak sandwich with the grease coming through
the paper.
And it was good. It was good, but that oil was just sitting in there. Mm-hmm. So we get to the airport. In the airport, we go to where we're gonna leave, and the somebody comes out and says, "Hey, the plane is has too much weight or something." I forgot what they said. So we're looking for somebody to take the next flight. The next flight was 9 hours later, so nobody took the next flight. So now we get up there. Now I'm already nervous because they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna fly anyway." So nobody's gonna get off the plane. The plane's too heavy. They're gonna fly anyway. Every wind that's blowing, the turbulence is crazy, and I got that oil in that lobster, and it was only an hour-long flight from Philly to New Haven. It was only an hour-long flight, but I just was trying to hold in from puking, and the plane was jumping up and down, and I was nauseous, and I was dizzy, and it was only an hour-long flight. So that was as bad as it gets. I know people have experienced like terrible turbulence, but that was as bad as it got, combined with the turbulence. And I'm looking out the window, and I can physically see the propellers turning, and the plane is up and down, and I got all this oily cheesesteak and lobster in my stomach. So that was the worst flight.
So with the lobster cheesesteak in your stomach, you didn't look out the window like on that episode of The Twilight Zone with William Shatner, and the little monster was on there ripping off parts of the wing?
No, the little monster was ripping off in my stomach. I was just trying to be silent, like, I'm pretty sure the person behind me was hating my guts.
Okay, so if somebody was interested in being on your podcast or just information more about how they can view some of the episodes of your podcast, can you share that with the audience?
Yeah, so the original one I was talking about is called Love You to Life Podcast. You can find that on Podbean. That's the one I said we did, I think we did 16, 17 episodes. That's what me and my co-host Candace. I'm actually, hoping that we'll either get back to it or I'll pick that up and do it maybe with a different co-host. Because I like the idea of going back and forth on topics. So that's Love You to Life Podcast. That's on Podbean. The podcast I do now is A Brother of a Certain Age, and that's on several things. I publish it on Anchor, and Anchor distributes it on like Apple, Google. Might be like Twitcher, but it distributes it. But if you type in A Brother of a Certain Age, it'll send you to the link. If you wanted to be on, you can email me at iusedtoloveher73@gmail.com. So that's IUSE, the number 2, LUVHER 73@gmail.com. And then you would just tell me, give me a little information, name, what, if it's a product you pitch in, or if it's just something you want to talk about, whether it's health related or it's a book or whatever. Just send me a little bit of information and tell me what you like to talk about, and we can go from there. And also too, you can DM me on Instagram, which is Love You to Life on Instagram. So that's LOVEYOU, the number 2, period, LIFE. And then just DM me, same information.
Okay. All right.
I got like eight more. I got 8 more points of contact, but we just go with them.
Well, we'll put those up, and if there's any more that you want, we'll put on the thumbnail for the interview, just so people can have access to it as well. So, again, thank you, Rodney, for sharing a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now. And I will also say, Chickies and Pete's. I went there last year for the first time, and yes, I would have to agree they do have some really good food. So, but I did not try the lobster Philly cheese. So
it sounded rich, but I'm a foodie. It sounded, and it was exactly what it sounded like. Just don't mix with it plain.
Okay, I will remember that. So again, thank you for joining us this week, and you have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching this week's video. I hope you were able to find one thing you can begin to apply to your life today. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments below. Let us know if you know of any great guests to be on the spotlight. I look forward to your questions and your comments. Thanks again for watching.